All right, thanks everyone for joining. This is the Fulfillment Architecture Review Meeting, session one, and today is June 18th, 2025. Thank you to Karina for adding the topic for today. I can send it your way to take it.
Yeah, thanks. The efforts for SM cloud licensing trials were picked up again, and we were briefly unblocked on a couple of changes, but then we made it back to the blogger about billing accounts and trial accounts. So we have a billing account, which is associated to a SOA account, which is only created when you purchase a subscription. And we have a trial account, which is created when you currently request a duo trial for SM. And there's also work going on by Etienne to move GitLab.com trials into a similar structure, into the new trials database table from the orders table. So they will also need to create trial account records. And then there's a third point that isn't really scoped out, but we know it's coming, which is free cloud licensing. So that will need a similar structure as well. Something that holds information about I don't know, the account that uses free cloud licensing. I'm not sure yet how this will look like and how it will work, but I assume it will be somewhat similar to try account maybe. But yeah, for now, we know it's somewhere out there, but we don't have any specific info as far as I know, at least. And the issue is that we want to have something like a common structure, but the billing account and trial account is very different from each other. So it's not easily possible to merge these two into the same or in one of each table, for example. So we can't merge trial accounts into the billing account table and vice versa. So the question is, should we create something like a new structure where we move all of them over? Should we modify the billing account table maybe to have more relaxed validations and constraints in the database to also be usable for trial accounts? Is there any alternative to that as well? So yeah, I wanted to pick your minds about what you would suggest doing here. We had a couple of calls before about this, but we never really came to like a conclusion, just a couple of ideas. But yeah, this topic is becoming a little bit more pressing because cloud licensing trials always come back into the picture as one of the more important things for this year. So it would be good if there's a path forward about this. And since this also affects subscription management team, there are a couple of people like Tatjana and Michael here to hopefully speak up for what your team might need for this. Because I'm only looking, or I'm familiar with the provision side, but you might have other needs as well for account management. So yeah, any thoughts so far? Any questions?
I have a question, Karina. Um, is it so as far as I know, that we can currently create trials for customers with a billing account, right? That's like the premium or ultimate trial or premium or something like that, that we provide that. In that case, is there a need for a trial account, or are we using a billing account for that?
Those trials are GitLab.com trials, I assume, because if you request a legacy license trial, you don't have any association to your other subscriptions that you have in place. So you don't have a billing account. So I assume this is GitLab.com. This is still being worked on to transfer to the trials and trial account structure. It's something that Etienne is currently working on.
Gotcha. But like as a high like higher level concept. It's possible to have trials for
Right.
billing
Yeah.
accounts,
Yes. Yes.
and it's also possible to have trials when there aren't billing accounts.
Yes.
Okay, I
And
just
there
want to
is
clarify.
there's an association and a trial account model to a billing account. So at the moment, the Duo trials for SM that are stored in the trials table, they all have a subscription associated to it. So we actually have the information about a billing account as well. But since we want to use it for other trials that are not related to a subscription, to purchase subscription, we need to have a little bit of more room here, wiggle room, I don't know. So there will be trial accounts without a billing account.
I guess that's exactly the point why this becomes, or when this becomes a little bit more hairy, because currently in the application, we do handle users that do not have a billing account. And that experience is, that's not our ideal experience. And ideal experience is that you have a billing account associated with you, because it unlocks a bunch of things for you in the application. Um, Not having a connection to a Sora account complicates a lot of things in our application. So that's generally a quite, like, talking from how we slice the application, that's quite an isolated experience currently. And this would kind of further the reach of that experience a little bit. Uh, and I think that's why it makes it difficult to merge these experiences with billing account. Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
I think the main concern from a provision perspective or general perspective, without knowing much about how a SOA or billing account affects everything that you're using in the customers front end, is that we will have lookups for a trial account and a billing account in multiple places. At the moment, trial accounts is just used within a trial concept, but with the works on SM cloud licensing, we will also move it into all the workflows that are related to subscriptions. So SM subscriptions, like the activation workflow, seed license seedlings, and so on. So it's like a very big impact at that point, where we have to do multiple lookups if we don't have a common account object. Maybe you can clarify what you mean with it has like a deeper impact on the experience if you're using customer stud.
Um, sure. I think what I refer to here is that having the connection to a Zora account is kind of our single source of truth for a lot of things, like how we update contact information, and that's all associated with the billing account. So not having that, we kind of um, store on the customer's model temporarily information of address and contact information on the customer's model, and then we transfer it to the billing account once that's created. So that's kind of what I mean with, like, the ideal state is that we want to have the billing account, because it makes a whole lot of things for us easier. Um, and also more complex, because they then have the opportunity to then update their contact information and have multiple different accounts associated to this one billing account. Before that, they're just a single user with a single customer model. So that's kind of tied to everything.
I think this might be an interesting path to actually go down, like what Michael just described. Because in the portal, we support users, i.e. customer record, without a billing account. So one can log in, update their profile information. So we do support the view for someone without a billing account. And then once you purchase something, have a billing account, you have a different view. So is there potential to go down this sort of path and say, if you have a billing account, you have a billing account and use that for trials. If you don't, you have your customer/user and you use that as the basis for an account, because that is basically what we do today in the portal. And furthermore, I'm thinking from like the user experience, if we were to start showing trial licenses to someone without a billing account, what might that look like? We don't do that today, but I think it could be interesting to think if we were to, what that might look like.
So as of today, if I think about legacy license trials, we really don't give the customer access. They don't even get like a customer record on customer.com. They just get a license sent.
But who is it like, who is it related to? Is it just an email address and there's no
It's
customer record?
it's basically just an email with a license in it. And we create a license record, and I think there's one other thing that we create, but it's not a customer record.
Now, that seems to be slightly different than .com trials, right? Because for .com trials, we actually do create a customer and tie the trial order to it. Is there a reason we couldn't do the same for self-managed?
It's not clear if people that want to request a SM trial actually have a GitLab account. Because you just fill out a form on, I don't know, about GitLab.com with the information for the trial, and you don't have to link it to anything. You just get the license as of today and apply it to your instance. But with GitLab.com trials, you actually want to link it to a namespace or group. So the experience is a little bit different, I guess.
And I think
So
it
you
makes
actually
sense.
need something there.
Yeah, it makes sense from that perspective. But if we were to think about, okay, what if we were to display these trial licenses to the customer, similar to how we display licenses for subscription? Like here, I requested it, I can log in and, download it. We would probably want to create a customer record. So I don't know, we don't have to like necessarily decide that now, but I wonder if we were to change that to create a customer record for this SM trial. I'll pause here. So I think some people want to say some stuff.
I guess we would need to ask for different information as well if we want to do that. I'm not sure what the required fields are as of today when you create a customers account, but I guess you would have to put in information like a country and a state, maybe a phone number or whatever. So there could be, additional information that we need to ask there, but I guess that could be possible. I'm just not sure about the user experience here, if that's like a big concern from a UX point of view. Yeah. Paulo, you wrote
I'll just
something in
kind
the
of like
chat?
put a pin in it and yeah, just maybe explore that if that's a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. Paulo, do you want to verbalize your question?
Yeah, it was more like a thinking out loud here. Like, what if we made billing accounts flexible enough that they don't depend on Zora for trials? I think we kind of merged both concepts in a single model.
Yeah, that was one option that we have on hand. The question is, does it make sense? Because if you look at the current billing account structure, there are so many fields on it and they're all Zora account related. So we will have a lot of fields that don't have any meaning for a trial account. And if that's not a concern, then that could be a path that we could go down with.
It's
But we
going to
would need to
complicate.
modify a lot of associations as well, because, for example, the billing account is associated to bill2 account, to a so2 account. So there's a lot of billing account context, I think. And we don't have that either. So there's another element here that we might have to create as part of the trial account in the billing account structure.
I'd like to share a couple of comments based on my experience on working on moving the .com trials to the trials table, which I've been doing for the past month and a half now. I'm not seeing billing account an entity to be used for trials. It's used in some cases when the customer has a premium and we are going for an ultimate trial, then billing account at some point gets into the picture. But to me, and I think I'm sort of like paraphrasing what Corina was saying, I'm seeing trial accounts, something that's linked more, an entity linked more to like namespaces. And then we have billing accounts, something that is like heavily tied to Azura. And to me, there is more a horizontal relationship between the two. The fact that Corina has actually linked in her meeting notes the schema.rb, and you see that billing account ID is a foreign key on trial accounts, right? To me, we're talking about something, two entities that can communicate with each other, but horizontally, they're not, one on top of the other, which is why when I'm reading the question on C2, should we convert billing account into, no, which one was it? Should we create an account abstraction that holds billing account and trial account? So that's the question at C3. I don't think that's something we can do. There is no vertical relationship between these two entities. At least today, I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing this as like two horizontal entities. And the fact that we have that foreign key on trial accounts proves that point. Yeah, those are like two comments that I wanted to make, and there was another one, but I just I just forgot about it. But I'll get back to it once I have it again. Does it make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
was
think.
curious.
Go ahead, Tyler. No.
I was just going to say I was curious to hear what Etienne had to say about this because it does feel very similar, like a parallel track, what he's working on with splitting out orders into like trials and orders. It's like a very similar exercise. I think what I'm not quite sure of is we're talking about a need for um, a common account model and structure, but what do we know what the similarities are between the two that like what are the things that we're finding we need to share between the two in order to make this work? Is it can we identify those in a way that maybe perhaps like could be made into an interface that both of these distinct objects share so that like they both behave in a way that can be called like thought of as like, accountable or something where they have shared methods or attributes between the two where we keep the models separate but they have shared behavior or shared functionality. I'm wondering if or are you finding they have like there's a need for them to be in the same database table for some reason. I guess that's where I'm not sure. Those of you who are like deep in the weeds with this might be able to share some context there.
I think the similarities between a billing account and a trial account isn't really there because we have to look a step further. We have to look at the billing account contact which is more similar to what we store in the trial accounts, like the email, I don't know, the company name, the first and last name of the customer, and so on. And I actually haven't really looked into the billing account contact, if that is something more worth looking at to ignore the billing account aspect and just associate like a trial to something like a billing account contact or a contact kind of model. But yeah, I see there's
That's a good
also a lot of,
distinction.
yeah, there's also a bunch of stuff in there, like a sync to Zora and so on. So yeah, I'm not sure if that is worth exploring instead of focusing on the account naming here.
Also, the fact that we're moving the SAS trial onto the trials table, isn't it like a sign that we're like pushing towards two different workflows and two different entities? Said differently, I mean, would it be worth going back to these questions once we have moved the SAS trials away from orders table and into the trials table? I think then we would see the role of trial accounts a bit more clearly and billing accounts a bit more clearly as well. I'm just thinking out loud about the timing of this conversation. I think it's good to have, but I'm just wondering about like the end result of that migration. Will it have an impact on what we're talking about here?
Do you see any issues with the migration of orders, of trials in the orders tables to the trials table to create the trial count information?
No,
Or
I'm not
what's
seeing.
the concern here?
I'm not seeing any issues. I'm just and even though I'm moving forward on that project, I cannot guarantee like 300% that this is what the models are going to look like. Maybe there will be like a column to remove or something like that, right? But while it's like very good to have this conversation now, I'm just wondering if like one piece of the puzzle which is that total migration, that finished migration onto the trails table, will it help with this conversation? That's what I'm talking about.
Well, I'm wondering where what drives the pressure to take a look at it again, like an extension to Etienne's question. But I also sit with another question, and this has probably been answered before, and maybe I've forgotten. But is there a reason why we cannot just create billing accounts for everyone and create a Sora account for everyone? Like, wouldn't that ease our minds and developer paths?
I think it was an idea that was floated around, but I think there was a concern about collecting something like the billing data from customers just for requesting a trial. So we would create a Zora account, but there's no purchase in there. So we're kind of like creating records in Zora without any data, any purchases in there, because we don't store trials in Zora, which would solve a lot of issues here, but we're not doing that.
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Would it make sense to actually align the paths here? I know that's probably not. Oh, go ahead.
There's an issue. I can try to dig up. I feel like we've had this conversation almost every year. But Michael, I'll try to find that issue where we basically documented the decision why we weren't going to use Zora for trials. And just high level, like it's just the way that we're also billed for using Zora, the application, would just inflate unnecessarily, like putting customers in there that don't pay. And Zora charges based on invoices. And really, like, that's the application for billing customers. It's not to store trials. unless,
Right.
unless it's a trial that we plan to automatically convert and we need to capture customer credit card information. I think at that point that could make sense. And I think we also looked at number of records or number of customer records we have that don't even have an order, and it was something crazy high.
Sounds good. We don't need to spend more time. Thanks. I just wanted to make sure that we did not, that we covered that path. Thanks.
Vishwa, I see you put something into the agenda in point D about delegated types. This reminds me a little bit of an STI approach. Could you elaborate what makes this one different?
Yeah, what makes this one different is we'll have three different tables for probably account, and then one for like one for billing account, one for trial account. But then these two are kind of closely related. If we want to make it, then we can go through accounts, and then if we want billing account, billing account. If we want trial account, trial account. I think this if this was created based on Basecamp, of course, but like in the official doc, like entry could be comment, and entry could be like post or something. So there is an entry table like its own. Instead of STI, it has like single table and class name here and there, but this one will have a separate table on its own. So we could have billing account, trial account, if you future Stripe account, if you go with Stripe, I don't know, something like that. And I'm just throwing ideas in. Sorry, but I don't know what's the core problem inside. But I felt like we are trying to somehow find a common thing on billing account and trial account. So this could be something we could look into if it fits our problem definition.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting. I guess the biggest concern is just that we would have to have different kind of lookups when we have multiple account records. Like we would have to check if there's a billing account, we would have to check if there's a trial account in multiple places where we have different, if we have an actual subscription, or if we just have a trial made up subscription. But I guess the idea with this delegated type is then that we have a similar lookup and it can decide which record to look for. Right? Somehow,
Probably.
maybe?
Yeah. I've also not researched a lot into it. It just came to my mind. But yeah, probably you can go through account, and then you can go account at billing account. So you could subscribe from that account, and then from there you could go down. So, if you want to check either billing account or trial account, or we could have a common methods like it's on there, like a concern that gives an active account, and then that active common account could have a logic around which one to return. Do you want to return Jura account, or do you want to return trial account based on whatever information we have on the
In that case, I
account?
think Tyler's suggestion on the interface seems like a better fit from my perspective on it. If we want commonalities, I think that's what the interface is for. Just thinking out loud here.
Yeah, I was also I wrote a comment there, but I was curious if this would work based on what we were talking about earlier with the commonalities seeming to be more on the contact side of things rather than the actual account. Like there's not a ton that's shared there. So would we need to do a similar type of exercise for those other associations too? Just feels it also feels complex.
I think the only difference is having a dedicated table like over here, right? Besides the interface. And the problem I think it was trying to solve was if you want to show a bunch of feeds, like you just go with entry, and then you have, all the feeds based on the entry. Same thing if you want to show just accounts, and we could go with account, and then account will have both, like, billing account and trial account. Maybe we don't need that. Maybe we can just go with interface too. That should be fine too. But if we see some yeah, pros on that, we could try that. Yeah.
It's interesting what you're saying, Tyler, because I think the main complexity with the billing account is the contacts, and that's already kind of muddied water, just because we have contacts and we have customer information, and they kind of are transferred, or like there's like an not sure how to pronounce the relationship there, but there is a relationship there. But it could be interesting to explore, what it would look like to make those association. I think I would start looking at the contacts for this, and see if that's a possibility before looking at other associations for the billing account, if we're to try to go down this path. Karina, could you dive into what is driving the pressure now? Maybe you said it and I missed it, but I'm still kind of not sure I understand what's driving the pressure now.
Yeah. So we started working on cloud licensing trials, I think back in November, December, in like a first phase. Then we transitioned into another phase of the project. But then do core came around, so it was heavily deprioritized. And it hasn't been worked on pretty much since, because we also had another blocker around some logic with the unique instance ID, but that has been resolved so far. So at least we have a workaround, because that also depends on billing accounts. But since we have a workaround, that's not a big concern. But the last big blocker was this the difference between a trial account and a billing account, and Vitaly raised a lot of concerns about having this tech debt around of having these two separate account structures, and then having to look up and maybe even update the records in multiple places. So there should be more of a common ground. And he also had an issue with the naming, because billing account is, in his opinion, a SOA account. And I think that that kind of like is something that we agree on as well, because it's heavily associated to SOA. So yeah, there. I guess the main issue that he saw is that we have different structures for similar things that we want to do, like some kind of a contact information. Again, the try account seems to be more similar to billing account contact. So yeah, maybe that could be a new starting point. Although I see that is also linked to a lot of logic in Zoa. So yeah, and there was the option to just move along with trial accounts and look at this later. So the project is unblocked, but there was concern about creating all this tech debt when we actually decide to not move forward with having two structures as well. Because then the cleanup would be bigger again, and we already went into that with a few other things as well.
The more we discuss this, it does almost sound like we are trying to find a solution for kind of like what Tyler and Etienne were saying already, like two very different concepts or two very different workflows right now. And yeah, along with what Tyler is saying too, like I do really wonder conceptually just how similar are these two accounts. And if it just makes sense to keep them separate, separate workflows, versus trying to find something to fit both that could add to more complexity.
Yeah, because right now it just seems like it's representing, like we were saying, a contact, but a billing account can have a contact. And yeah, I'm just not sure if there's enough similarities there to try and join the two. I'm just curious what others are feeling at the moment.
The trial account, I guess currently we support one kind of contact, someone that would receive the trial license or whatever it is. Um, that, do we ever have plans to support multiple contacts there? I'm just wondering, like, I feel like we're circling in on maybe the contact being the thing that is somewhat loosely shared between these two objects. And yeah, potentially we just continue to consider them separate, or maybe there is some commonality between what we have in billing account contacts and potentially splitting out what is in the trial account that is contactable. And so we could have a trial account that then points to some sort of trial contacts that is very similar. And maybe the interface is there that we could gain some, reducing of duplicated code, or, having a shared concern or something like that. Um, maybe that's where we could focus like the investigation. I don't know what others think.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan to dive into that. Immediately also thinking about that we could then make the contact model flexible to, sync with Zora if there is an account, or just, stay in the in the database if there is no Zora account. So yeah, I like where that thought is heading.
How is this new concept of this contact different from the customer record?
I guess it would just be separate. That's like, that's it. And then, yeah, we would then, form one model to both serve as the Zora contact, but also what we store perhaps temporarily now in the customer model, but, move that out. Just thinking out loud that it doesn't have to be like that, but that's immediately where my head went.
And that immediately made me think of, Michael, remember all the difficulties we've had with like records that have emails and first name, last name, and having to keep those in sync has been a nightmare. So I kind of question whether introducing yet another record that would store email, first name, last name is actually the right move, or do we think back to the customer record?
I think it would centralize that, and I think it would actually make it easier for us, even though it might be a hurdle to get through. But that's a hunch, not based on anything, taking around, just a hunch from what we've worked on so far.
For what it's worth,
think-
we only collect the name and not a separate first and last name for trials. But we could change the input form for a trial request. So I guess that could be one option if that's a concern.
Yeah, it makes me just wonder, because that's yet another place where we're storing a name that might reference the same person that is a customer record, right? Is there maybe a way for us to standardize it down to the customer record? Basically what we have today with .com trials.
Well, I do think we want to move away from storing this in the customer's model, and have it separate. That was also like in part what we wanted to achieve with the billing accounts, was to move this away from the customer's account, because it's supposed to be a user account, not a
Yep,
customer's account.
exactly.
Yeah.
Completely agree. And
Yeah.
that was obviously, like, I think we've talked about customer, the name of the record being customer is kind of problematic because it's literally just a user that's logging in. Yeah.
Well, we're super over time, but I wanted to, if no other thoughts are in there, I wanted to kind of end on a funny note. I immediately thought of like share as like the one name in your when you're starting a trial. Yeah. Anyways, sorry, I'll shut up now.
Okay, so to attempting to summarize, we should look into billing account context and see if we can maybe merge trial accounts into that kind of structure.
Or yeah,
Wouldn't
or
use the
separating
billing
trial accounts.
account contact there, right? You wouldn't use that specific object just because it is a one-to-one with a contact in Zora. Sorry, Tyler, I interrupted you.
No, yeah, I agree with that thought though. I mean, I feel like billing account contact is associated directly with the billing system, which is Zora. So if we started adding things there, I think that would be maybe confusing. No, I think you're on that is the thing we can focus on, splitting out trial accounts into something that would be, separating the contact part of that out. And then I think with also the idea of looking at user and the customer record, and we had plans to separate those at one point and only focus on customer, like with the name change to user, and it only being like a login type, essentially just a login to customer site, and then separating out the contact part of it. That's a lot to do for this exercise, I think, but at least if we had that in mind, it might help make the decision for the immediate decision here.
I was kind of thinking, and maybe I'm wrong, but I was thinking like look at the account interface and then what billing account would look like under that and what trials account would look like under that. And then both of them have, like in the interface, have an association to a contact interface that then could look different for billing and trial. Something like that.
That could work. Yeah.
I think one issue that will remain is that we need all of this structure because we need to create a cloud activation record. And the cloud activation record is currently scoped to a customer and to a billing account. And now we also have to add it to a try account, which is already, there's already an attribute in there. So that's like 3 different associations, and that feels pretty messy as well.
The customer association on that model, isn't that, I think at one point that was going to be temporary as we move towards billing accounts. Is that still the case? Like that was going to be removed, or not? I'm not sure where that ended up.
That was that in connection with the cloud connector? Or am I remembering wrong?
Maybe. I'm not sure. But it is a valid concern, I guess, Karina. Maybe there's a way we can get it down to 1 if we go with the interface type approach, potentially. I'm not sure.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we're already way over time. So yeah, maybe we let this all sink in. If anyone has any follow-up thoughts, please feel free to update the agenda, leave a comment in Slack or whatever in the issue as well. But yeah, we will try to, or I will try to process all these thoughts now and see what can be done. But so far, thanks a lot for the discussion.
Yeah, Karina, since it sounds like this is blocking you and you may not want to wait another 3 weeks until we have another meeting, feel free to schedule, something else after you've had time to digest this, and I'm sure any of us would be happy to join again.
Yeah, I think I will jump on some calls with Valerie, who probably will work on the cloud licensing trial project as well. So that I have a sparring partner as well, if that's okay with you, Valerie. And then we can come back to a bigger discussion round again.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
All right. Then thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.